Hey everyone, I hope it's going well for you. I'm speaking quietly. I'm just doing a stream of consciousness here from my resting state in bed. I've been wanting to make a video for a few days. I noticed that I have some new subscribers, which is really cool. Welcome. I have an intention to make a video to bring people up to speed in a concise manner, sort of laying out a summary of topics that I've spoken about on here for the past year, just roughly letting you know that it sprung originally from Gnostic thought to questioning the mechanics of this realm, the interplay between the inner world and the outer, the inner psyche and the mind at large, Taurus mechanics, plasma as the vehicle for spirit, ether as the fundamental substrate or field of consciousness. Some people that I've mentioned in the past who influence a lot of my thoughts and who I've mentioned many times in the past videos: Rupert Sheldrake, who I met and spoke with 10 years ago, which was an incredible experience. I can share more and have in other videos about that. Ken Wheeler's research on electromagnetism and dielectricity, the way nature sees electromagnetism. Nicole Murphy and her research on the cycles of the luminaries in the Book of Enoch, explaining how the greater torus field of the realm operates and can be observed. Santos Bonacci and his syncretism comparisons across astrotheology and mythos, Victor Schauberger's work on water vortices, and Robert Temple's writings and research on plasma as the fundamental composite of reality itself. Not only the book The New Science of Heaven, but also the book The Sirius Mystery was fascinating and ties in the Dogon tribe's telepathically conveyed gnosis from the plasma discharge formless beings called the Nomo. Also important to mention is recently coming across the work of Anthony Peratt and his findings on plasma discharge, similarities with ancient culture petroglyphs. I also love to mention the telepathy tapes, research of non-speaking autists who are able to telepathically send and receive information across species, fields, time, and space, pointing to and helping to confirm to me that we are able to focus or tune into wavelengths and access streams of information that is otherwise undetectable by man-made instrumentation. And many others have influenced me, and I credit them when I bring them up in my videos. But this core group has influenced my current thought processes on the nature of reality, creation, ether as the base field of consciousness, how the greater and lesser torus fields or biofields of individuals work, how we can learn to sense into our subtle interface and have better control of our energy or charge, and how we can notice patterns and self-similarities across all scales of creation, micro to macro, to help us cross-apply and come to a deeper understanding of the makeup of reality. I don't follow along much or conform with the materialist viewpoint of the way that things are in modern society, science circles, so it leaves me a lot of room to speculate and go into deeper states where gnosis comes through. I talk about our physical body as being a technological type of interface, that our spirit is animating, and that we are able to stay connected as nodes to the greater Ethernet of spirit while embodied, sometimes more concentrated in short periods of time, as in bouts of spontaneous awakenings, or slow progressive evolution of your spirituality, or the opposite. Some people rely heavily on their autopilot capacity and let their subconscious run the show and go along with the programming of the societal construct and matrices, and aren't really operating from that spirit space, but more from the programmed data operating system. The last conversation I had on the channel was with Joshua from Electric Gnosis, which was really fun. I listened back to it a couple of times because I thought it was interesting that I would start to share an insight or bring something up, and my train of thought would become derailed by my own mind, and whatever I ended up speaking on was not my original intention, is what we spoke about. So I want to reiterate a few things. So I was talking about picking up information and these deeper layers of gnosis through the subtle senses. I feel like we're all instruments, antennas, receivers, also transmitting information as well. I think that there are maybe cycles or time periods or moments of greater or lesser charge distribution or redistribution in the field, where our antennae are more sensitive or where there's more information being stirred in the field or activated, easier to pick up on by our individual nodes. I've noticed over the past few months that several people who are interested in the similar topics start to receive very similar information and insights. And although every person is conveying it through their unique lens, which I feel is important, even if what people are saying intersects or closely resembles each other, it's going to come out differently for each person, has their own energetic signature that acts as a vibratory key to help anyone unlock a specific door in their journey, and everyone holds a key for some door somewhere. Certain people resonate with certain information, therefore they are receiving similar insights and inspired by each other in ways that helps them better articulate what they want to say as well. And so everyone's helping each other reach this 100th monkey tipping point. That was a really good book. Malcolm Gladwell, I think, wrote the book Tipping Point. I read that. It was like 10 or 15 years ago. It's a good book. Yesterday, I drew something on my whiteboard, and I would love to show you guys. What I drew was, I've had the outline on my board, the outer perimeter outlined. That's the larger field, like a huge rectangle, and that's the ether. And then within, as I've said in other videos, it is the potential charge, spirit before formation, and the dielectricity is a phase of the ether that when concentration of charge begins, it starts to spin. And I've demonstrated this on other videos too with the Toro flux. In the past, you'll have to go back some months to see that demonstration of the spinning process that starts the formation of the electromagnetism. As it holds enough charge, it becomes its own torus field system and can maintain its own integrity and continue on the creation process. I love also talking about thought forms and ideas as things. Another great book is Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic. I recommend reading that. I read that like 7 years ago. Really good. Thought forms and ideas that are existing in the larger mind of potential, as they gain more charge as well, they can begin the process of materialization, or I'm thinking the term quantum tunneling into form. From spirit to form is this process called quantum tunneling. And I'm making that up, but I think it fits in with what I'm trying to say. And so, speaking of the ether and the dielectricity and the spin, I told Joshua in our talk that I think everything is just different phases of the one thing. That ether is the fundamental substrate, spirit, and when spirit becomes stirred or concentrated, the dielectricity in the ether starts to form the flow of electromagnetism. That forms a point of light that vibrates, which is also sound, and that vibration shows up as plasma, the phase of subtle materialization. And I think plasma is the vehicle for spirit because it can begin to hold form and accumulate more. Today, I was listening to a recent Telepathy Tapes episode about plants, and it reminded me about how I used to talk about on this channel the doctrine of signatures and how plants communicate their purpose through their form and their energy. And the podcast was saying that the non-speaking individuals can pick up plant communication in the field of consciousness. And that's so fascinating to me because I think it ties back to the idea that consciousness isn't something we have, it's something we have awareness of. There's one underlying field of consciousness which stems into subfields, smaller subfields. So maybe consciousness is ether, spirit is ether, and everything is constantly losing or collecting charge which is information or memory, and it can be drawn upon. And so this whole etheric substrate of potential charge and spirit, which is constantly expanding because of all of the new information that's being collected through the vehicles in form, can be continuously tuned into. So I mentioned during our talk that I felt that that fundamental etheric substrate was like the surface of a lake, and that when energy or charge begins to collect, it starts to spin and funnel into another, this is what I'm saying is the quantum tunneling into a different phase of materialization. So it's ether, vibration, electromagnetism. What that shows up as is plasma that begins to collect more charge and self-accumulate. And if it can do it long enough, it turns itself into an enclosed loop system, a torus field that has a dielectric core of its own and can then not only be created, but also create. I was recently on TikTok looking at videos, and this one girl showed an image of, she said, this is what multidimensional beings look like. When I saw it, it made so much click into my mind because it looks just like the seed pods of the flowers or the different pollens, the different things in nature when it goes to that process of shedding its seed, that flow of the seed in whatever medium, the air or fluid or a body, it's carrying the seed, the information to find the egg or the womb or the soil to create this spiritual, biological combination that can be continued into a new form. I was thinking about the process of life cycles, how there's always a seed, whether carried in the wind, dropped in the soil, transferred from one being to another, and thinking about that spark that happens at conception, like maybe a biological being lights up on a kind of etheric radar, drawing the spirit toward it, the spirit that's everywhere. There is nowhere that is not the etheric substrate. We are experiencing reality through a limited perceptual interface, but we still have spirit within us to connect to the larger substrate or mind. This is written in Robert Temple's book, The New Science of Heaven, saying that 99% of reality is formless plasma, and so that infers that the 1% is plasma in form. So I think that the spirit that's able to hold on to its signature and grow upon itself travels in a formless state into where this seed and egg or fertilization process is beginning. That spark happens across all creation. It's the spirit entering into the biology. Like, hey, here's something that's growing that doesn't yet have a spirit. Okay, go in there. And thinking of what's all around us all the time that we cannot see. In like the military, when they had those diacinnamon, however you say it, glasses that they don't use anymore because it was allowing, through a certain polarization effect, the individuals wearing them to see the etheric beings that are all around us that we normally can't see. It's like we can only hear a few things, but really there's millions of waves traveling through the environment that you're in right now, and if you had a correct instrument, you could tune in and hear so many things or perceive so many things. I think the spirit goes into the being, and it's like a light reader. reading the coding of the DNA and helping to animate the being as it unfolds, using whatever information that it's given in its instruction manual of the DNA. So these are the nodes. Become a node, and then we're all connected through the grander Ethernet. So I recently heard the term quantum tunneling, and like I said before, I started applying it to this process of creation from ether, dielectricity, plasma, torus formation, continual perpetual motion feedback mechanism of electromagnetism, this whole self-sustaining ladder or tunneling into materialization. I've been thinking about this in terms with Victor Schauberger's work, the vortexing of the water. I didn't mention earlier, Dan Winter talks about the centripetal spinning implosive physics of spirit within your field. So, as a lot of us are saying, we can reverse engineer the patterns by looking at nature. 5 months ago, I made a video about electromagnetism and the patterns it makes, applying it to the torus field, and you can check that out. It's called Hidden in Plain Sight. That connects to Nicole Murphy's work with the luminaries, the law of the luminaries, the Book of Enoch, and she's focused on the sky clock. But I apply these patterns to all of reality beyond this realm to speculate as well, even though they can't be observed. And I know that it's important for some people to stick with what's observable and develop that. So I think that's really great that she's doing that. Another thing that fascinates me is the experiment that Ken Wheeler did on the frozen magnet that shows electromagnetism, that it forms the cosmic egg shape, and that he equates the ratio, the spatial ratio of the egg shape as phi to 1. And so that's the spiraling up from the dielectric core of the torus into the hyperbola, up and around. That spiral that you can see looking down into the torus is measured as the Fibonacci sequence, the golden spiral. And that is why everything within the realm is also unfolding in that same ratio that guides the creation to unfold in a specific way, because it allows for infinite potential within a constraint. Because it's phi to 1, and then it's also the inverse 1 to phi. And there's one side of the dielectric core magnet, and then there's another. There's the underside. And he also did an experiment where he was able to see that the other side is actually the inverse of the top, or the other way around. So you can apply that to considering redshift, blue shift, and electromagnetism, the realm, the hollow earth, the concave earth, the other side, Summerland, the black hole, the white hole of the realm, all of those speculative theories that could suggest that this isn't the only, that there may be an inverse happening at the same time. And I keep pondering on how individuated spirits, these subtle plasma beings, move, incarnate, inhabit form, and leave form. I know there's some photography that's been able to capture orbs after death from different pets or loved ones. Then there's the spark at the beginning of conception. How spirit is subtle and invisible, quote unquote, until it gains enough charge to appear as plasma, as light, and weave itself within a biological system. A few years ago, I was diagnosed with a rare progressive spinal condition, which has forced me much deeper into these thoughts. I've been sharing them in different conversations. I have a lot of great insights. I know that it's inspiring to some people who are thinking along the same lines, and they're helping me come to deeper understandings, and I'm helping them, and it's a beautiful thing. Also, earlier in my channel, I was looking into near-death experiencer stories, talking about perception shifts of awareness. glimpses into what lies beyond the everyday sensory realm. It feels like we're in the well-oiled machine of a reality that's constantly regenerating itself, feeding upon itself, cycling through. And I'm not able to leave this physical body or this experience, and so as I rest in a lot of pain, I'll keep pondering the mysteries of life and keep asking how this works. I have tons of stuff that I want to talk about, and I want to welcome anybody new, and thanks for subscribing, and please take some time to go back through my videos and hear as I've been gathering concepts and ideas to culminate to what my thoughts are today.